Hey, this is JC and welcome to Small Brick City. In this video, I'll share ideas on how you can transform the Winter Village Fire Station Set 10263 into a modular building. Because that's exactly what I did. I changed it into a modular building built on a 16 by 32 stud base plate, and I also changed the fire station into the Firehouse Tavern. So there's now a nice cozy bar. You can check out my review for this mock in the link in the card above or in the description. Thanks to everyone who liked that video and left a comment. I did receive a few private messages on specific questions on how I modified the set to become a modular building, and that's what I'm going to cover in this video. First, I'm going to assume that you're going to build the modular building on a 16 by 32 stud base plate, which is what I have here. If you really want to build a bigger set, you probably need two sets if you want to build a 32 by 32 stud base plate. But for this discussion, I'm going to assume that you're going to build it on a 16 by 32 plate and you're only going to use one set. So I did use one set to do this remock, but I added about 100 bricks. And these bricks came in the form of dark grey regular bricks, light grey regular bricks, and these masonry dark grey bricks. And that's how I managed to create the entire build, of course using up all or virtually all of the original bricks from the set. The first thing you have to figure out is how big the building is going to be and how much space it will take up on your 16 by 32 stud base plate. In my case, my main building is about 16 studs wide. However, there is some extrusion with this archway for the door as well as these support bases here. But the main build itself is 16 studs wide, as you can see. Now this was dependent on the number of bricks I had. I didn't have that many, so I couldn't make it that deep, and that's why this is the size I came up with. So you have to be realistic and figure out how many spare bricks you have in order to do a remock of this into a modular building. After you've determined the size, you have to figure out how far in to the base plate you want to put it in. Over here, I have it about 6 studs in, and that's to give it a nice sidewalk. Bearing in mind I do have these two base pillars here, and this is something I added to and built. You don't need to have this, but I thought it gives quite a bit of a nice texture to the look. But generally I work with about 6 to 7 studs, and then I build the building, and whatever remains behind remains. So I'm not too concerned about the back, at least for this particular build. Once you figure out the rough size that you're going to work with, you need to work with the original set. Of course, you should build the original set in its entirety first. First, that's the whole purpose of buying the set. It's a fun build, but you do want to start with the original set so that you can modify it into the modular building. So don't start with loose bricks. So what you need to do is figure out how you're going to change the shape into a modular building. Because in the original set, there's no back. This tower is off to the side over here, and the other part of the building is also off to the other side, and there's a set of steps that walks up. Now the size of the build is not 16 studs wide, which is what the base plate is, and if you want it to be a modular building that fits in between other buildings, you do need to ensure the building is 16 studs wide. That's kind of the first challenge. You have to rebuild it so that the width or the front facade is 16 studs wide. Currently, I believe it's about 14 studs wide, not counting the overhang of the roof. So this is what I did in terms of how I built it. I just took out sections of one side first, and then I rebuilt it to expand it. But I did not touch the other side so that I could always use it as a visual reference. I found that to be quite useful, because if I had broken it into pieces completely, even though it's partial pieces, it might get a bit confusing if I were to try to rebuild it, or I'd have to look at the photographs or the images of the old build in order to reconstruct it. So I found just by removing sections at a time on just one side, I could kind of mirror the build. One thing I did do was to extend the height of each floor, and I felt that was necessary to give the overall height of the building to match other modular buildings. For example, over here, this is my Super Combo Lego store, and it's roughly about the same height. Maybe the main build is just a brick shorter, or it's actually almost exactly the same if you look over here. But the tower, of course, is taller. But set next to each other, at least they match the relative size. If you were to use the original height of the original set, it would be much shorter and wider. So there is a need to increase the height, and I did that by adding bricks, about 6 to 7 bricks per floor, and that's added along the base over here. So that dark gray, light gray, and then the original build, I filled in masonry bricks, and then original build bricks, and then light gray bricks, and that's how I got the height. So the first thing, that's exactly what I did. I kind of rebuilt it to form the width of the modular building. I didn't bother about the tower, I didn't bother about anything else. Obviously I took out the steps first. So I increased the width, and then I increased the height to get the main structure. Once I got the main structure, I started to build around to complete the back. You need to build a set of steps. You can build it inside if you want, it's absolutely fine. But there's not much space inside, and it is quite high. That is why I chose to build an exterior steps, and you are free to do so as well. And basically you need an extra set of steps so that you can do this right angle turn. And this is basically a column of 2 by 2 bricks. There's some plates here to create a landing, and I just tiled everything just to make everything nice. So this entire back has to be created, and I did follow the basic design of using regular light gray bricks and some masonry bricks. I also put in some modified bricks so that I can put on these tiles. This is just to give a kind of a random look. Maybe it looks a bit like bricks falling apart, but the original build had some elements like that, so I just kept to that to keep to the original design. Once you've kind of filled in the overall structure of the build so that you get the 2 floors of the build and you've got the width, you now need to go into the details. And the details include these decorations such as these pipes. These are basically bar elements with round bricks, and what I did was I added more round bricks, and I added these studs as well to increase the height. And I also shifted these from the front to the side, and I think it frames the build much better. The other thing I added are these masonry bricks on the side. That was to fill in the space, and I also think it works very well. If not, you can just use regular light tan bricks as well. You can also try to work with dark grey masonry bricks. That would likely fit as well the design if you use them on both sides. I added these 1 by 1 modified decorative bricks as well, just to add to the overall ornate feel. But this entire center section remained the same. I added modified bricks here. This entire front section has modified bricks, and that's so that I could put these light tan plates, and that's just to give texture. Because I've raised the height of the floor, I needed some textured elements just to fill in the space, and that's what I did over here as well. This is actually borrowed from the Expert Modular Building Fire Brigade set. So on that set, they have 2 sets of these decorations with tools and the golden fire hat. So I took that in a way to call reference to the set, but also to fill in the space that I used to increase the height of the floor. Finally, you want to move these lights which came with the original set and the siren, and just move it to the front if you like, and that's just to use as many of the original decorations and builds as possible within your new MOC. So that's basically it in terms of the main structure. Once you've done the main structure, I think one of the trickier elements is this part over here, and that's the tower. I kept this tower mainly intact, but I did increase it by 1 brick's height. And the way I did it, actually, if you look at my roof doesn't come off completely. The roof itself has a right angle cutoff, and that right angle cutoff is for the tower. And this is really just a loose set of bricks that matches up when I put the rest of the roof on, as you can see, just like that. But in my design, the roof just comes off this way. Now, speaking of the roof, one thing I did do was to maintain the hole in the roof for the light brick. That's right, the jumping light brick. So this is basically of the same scale and size of the original build, and you can use the same plates. I believe I used all the same plates. I'm not sure if I added my own plates, maybe some for the underside, but that's about it. So generally I use the same plates to recreate the roof. But I must say, these plates were used that came, or rather they came from the original set for the first floor as well as the roof. So I used both sets of plates for my roof, and I used my own plate for the second floor, if that makes sense. So the greatest challenge I think one would find after you build the structure is to add this particular tower. I'm going to show you a top view to show you how I actually built the tower into the structure. Here's a top view of the second floor. I'm just going to break this apart so maybe you can see how I did it. See these bricks over here? These are built onto a corner brick. So that's a 3-stud corner brick which is built into the wall. And that allowed me to build or support this tower on it, as you can see. And this side was built onto my second floor. But that's how I connected this tower to my wall. I also added this rod, or these two rods with modified plates with clips that are built into the wall itself. And this is actually one rod by itself, as you can see, or one bar element, 4 studs long. There's a 3-stud long bar element there which goes onto another clip, and it actually all lines up with the long, or the original fire pole, which starts from the bottom floor. And you can see it goes down that hole because I do have a hole in my flooring for the second floor here, and that matches the fire pole from the original set. So this you have to kind of figure out if you want to retain the fire pole element. If you don't, then you can just take out that element altogether. But that's basically what I did to retain the fire pole and to line everything up. And as mentioned, this was more or less kept with the original build. I did change the orientation a bit so that the fancy white grille elements face the back and the outside. So that's basically it in terms of the structure. I won't get so much into the detailing because that's up to you whether you want to keep it as a fire station or to change it into something else. One final thing I like to talk about is the roof design and edging. This is essentially the original build. These are modified plates with clips and modified plate with rails. So I kept this entire section here as per the original, but I did have to add a layer of brick here just to give some depth to the roof. So I added these modified bricks with grills, and this 1x1 space, you can't just use a regular brick, but I just used a round brick just to make it look a bit different, and that's the same for the other side as well. So you have more than enough of these rail and modified plate clip elements to create the railing for the front as well as for the back, because these came from the side and I basically just transposed them to the back. Well, that's about it for ideas and tips on how to transform the winter fire station into a modular building. If you have any specific questions, feel free to ask me, or you can reach out to me by private message on Instagram. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.